Before we dive in, this week's episode is brought to you by my free cheat sheet, 30 Top Tips to Find Time to Write. In this guide, I give you 30 ways that you can find time to write in the small gaps that appear between the various errands and tasks and responsibilities that you have in your day-to-day life. Now, you might be thinking that you don't have any time to spare, but I can guarantee these top tips will give you writing time you didn't think you had. If you thought writing always involved a pen and paper or a keyboard, think again. If you thought you needed at least an hour at a time to write your manuscript, I help you reframe that. You won't be disappointed. Get your free copy of 30 Top Tips to Find Time to Write by going to emmadesi.com/30 top tips. Okay, let's dive in to today's episode. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Turning Readers into Writers. Now, I've gone a little bit off piste this week, and I'm actually using an interview I did about 18 months ago, maybe even 2 years ago now, with the lovely Mariëlle Smith. I have recently started exploring oracle cards and tarot cards and whether or not they can be helpful to me in my writing life and indeed maybe even writing my books. And I remembered I had interviewed Mariëlle all those months ago about just that, tarot for writing. So it felt very timely today to bring that back and see if I could be re-inspired. And indeed I was. And in fact, so inspired, I thought I really ought to share this with you guys. Originally, this was only for those who were in my Facebook group and they had access to it live on the evening. So I have edited it down to the pertinent parts for you. And I really hope that you will get something out of this. It really is an introduction to tarot. So if it's something that you've been thinking about but haven't been sure about, this will possibly be the kind of introduction that you need, either to say, yes, this is worth exploring further, or no, it's not for me at all. So I do recommend listening to it if you are trying to find a perhaps non-traditional way of writing and enhancing your writing life, enhancing your mindset, which, as you'll hear, Mariëlle uses her tarot cards for predominantly. A lot of other people use it for the storytelling, but she uses it, in addition, she uses it for her own mindset and keeping her spirits going, keeping her motivation going, and keeping her on the right track. And it's clearly working because Mariëlle has been prolific over the last 1.5 to 2 years. So this interview is old, but the information is pertinent. I've updated all of the links. And indeed, Mariëlle has a new podcast called Diversity for Writers. And I've put links to that there as well. So please do listen. You won't regret it. I promise. All right. I'll see you soon. Okay, let's delve into today's interview. Hi, everybody. I hope you're all good. Everybody's having a nice day so far. But let me introduce you to Mariëlle Smith, who is an author. She is a writing coach and she's an editor. And I first met Mariëlle when I was looking for someone to help me with my second book. And we were working on the marketing blurb together, and she was a great help. But not long after that, I realized, oh my goodness, there's so much more that she does. So Mariëlle, welcome.
Hi.
Hello, and I just wondered if you wouldn't mind sharing with everybody sort of what it is that you do, because I know you do more than the blurb. There's a whole kind of suite of services you offer.
Okay, so I do a lot of things. So one of them is like my main thing is I do editing and I do coaching for writers. I do also help people with their blurbs. I do a lot of academic editing, actually, also thesis supervising.
Because you're an editor, aren't you, for
yes.
a very well-known journal?
Well, very well known. It's a Dutch journal, so not that well known. But yeah, it's very nice. Like I'm kind of the editor. Editor-in-chief has many meanings depending on how you see it. But I'm basically the one who makes sure that everything is in tip-top shape, and I send it off to the printer. That's basically my job.
Okay. So yeah, top dog, making sure everything is working well. Now, Mariëlle very kindly put up a post in the Facebook group yesterday, and there has been some people asking questions that they'd like some answers to towards the end of the session tonight. But if you also have anyone who's watching, and indeed anybody who comes in to watch the replay and wants to post in a question for Mariëlle to draw at a future date, I'm sure that would be fine as well.
Yes, of course, it would be fun.
But don't be shy. So if you do have one this evening that you haven't let her know about already, please do post it in the comments, and we'll come to it in due course. But Mariëlle, I wonder then, I know that you've got a lovely presentation ready for us just to help us understand, particularly someone like me who is very, very new to tarot, just to help kind of walk us through the basics and have an understanding. And then towards the end, we can sort of have some questions and things, and then obviously do the draw as well. Do you call it that? Is it a draw?
A draw or a pull, whatever. Yeah.
Okay. So why don't you pull up your slides, and then I'll kind of make myself scarce so that I don't distract everybody.
Thank you for being here, and thank you, Emma, for inviting me to talk about this. It was actually quite a struggle for me, because I wanted to make it as introductory as possible. So I hope I've succeeded in that. So first, a little bit about myself. I just already said some things. I do many things. They're all writing related. Usually when I introduce myself, I simply say I'm a writer, writing coach, and an editor. So what I do when it comes to writing, my true fiction passion is YA literature and YA fantasy especially. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't really been able to prioritize my fiction writing much due to the editing job, the coaching job. And since last year, I've started writing nonfiction, all of which you see at the bottom of the page. I did, however, co-write and publish a lesbian romance series last year with a friend under a pen name. So I have been doing some of that. But yeah, unfortunately, fiction tends to be a back burner for me, and I am working on that. And I will explain in a bit how I came to writing nonfiction. So that might explain a little bit why I've been preoccupied with that. So when it comes to nonfiction, I tend to write tools for writers and other creatives. I will be publishing a gratitude journal late this month, early next month. And that, of course, is for everybody. So if you look at the screen in the middle, there's 52 weeks of writing. Emma, I think you have a copy of that.
Let me unmute myself. Yes, I do have a copy of that, and it's amazing. It's really, really great. In fact, I should be able to show people it a little bit later on if they want to have a look.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah. Okay, so this is not a tarot book. This is my non-tarot book. This is my author journal and planner, and one of the users has dubbed it the holistic approach to being an author, which is, of course, a compliment I gladly take. And I'm actually currently working on the next edition that should be out early December. It's just in time for Christmas. So the other books that I've published that you see here, they're all, for the lack of a better word, tarot books. And I'll explain in a bit why I call it lack of a better word. And most of these are for writers and other creatives, except for this one right here, which is especially for writers, just because of the content. And most of these are based on tarot challenges that I've done on Instagram. Tarot challenges, for those who aren't aware of that, very popular on Instagram. A lot of tarot readers are doing them. And it's basically a 31-day journey around a particular topic, which in my case, of course, is a creative topic or a creative issue. They're all that, all these five here. Except for this one, which is a book with spreads that speak to creative struggles. So that's just a collection of spreads. And I know Emma asked me earlier this week, what is a spread? So I will explain to you, I'll show in a second what a tarot spread is for those who don't know. So how did I get here? For me, that was very much like this. I love cats, by the way. You might actually see, I don't know if you see when you saw me in the screen, whether you saw my cat calendar, which is behind me. I was a bit like, what's happening? But for a lot of people, I think it was very obvious that this was the direction that my career was going in. So I have actually been playing with cards for quite a few years now. And I want to say here, when I say cards, I include like all cards. That's why I said tarot, for lack of a better word, because when all my books can be used with any type of card deck, really. Because I started out with this one, the Wild Wisdom of the Fairy Oracle. I think that's when I got my first tarot deck, which is this one. This is a selection, by the way. This is not all the cards that I have. I am not a card hoarder. Some of my friends have like 100 decks. That's not me. I have a few more than this, but not a lot more. But I just wanted to show that there are different kind of cards. So these are, for example, these two are angel cards, for example. And these two are tarot decks, and these others are all oracle decks. That's what they're called. So I just wanted to show that when I say what these different decks look like, but also that when I say tarot, unless I'm specifically talking about tarot and what it does, I tend to mean whatever kind of cards are out there. So what happened? So I started writing these nonfiction book like last year. So what happened early last year? Well, I moved countries. I'm originally from the Netherlands, and this is just an image I pulled from Canva, but of course we miss a few islands here and there. I moved to Cyprus, another island. And so before I moved, I always tried to keep the spiritual out of my writing related work. Like I just actively tried to not combine the two. And funnily, like, hindsight is 2020. I never was really successful with that to begin with, but I wasn't really aware of that. Turns out, when I look back, I've had so many clients just because of the work that they had me do, like the books that they had me edit, or even the books that they had me translate in some cases. They were so steeped in spiritual topics. I was always already combining the two. I just thought I wasn't. I just tried to keep the divide. So after I made this move, I couldn't keep the divide up anymore. Well, the reason I picked Cyprus as my next destination for life is because the first time I was on the island, I experienced it as such an inspiring place. Like I was just writing all the time. Like it was just, I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't even want to explore the island. The first time I was there, it was such a wonderful experience. But I didn't know at the time that when I decided to move there, that as soon as I got on my feet, I kept having like idea after idea. And all of these ideas, they combined my love for cards with my professional work, and especially my coaching work. So this is like the 1st of May, 2019 was when I did my first tarot challenge on Instagram. And actually exactly a year ago, 5th of August 2019, is when I published that first tarot challenge into book form. And that was this one, Get Out of Your Own Way. This one. So today's talk is actually a nice kind of anniversary celebration for me. So before we get into today's topic, I want to make something really clear. And somebody already asked me in the group as well. When we talk about tarot, and now I'm specifically talking about tarot, when we talk about tarot and writing, we tend to talk about it as a tool for story planning. And it is a great tool for story planning. It's a great tool to flesh out your setting, work on your characters. It's just not today's focus. In general, it's not really the focus of my work, except for this particular book, Fleshing Out the Narratives. I do want to show you some resources, though. So these are some of the books out there that do work with that. And I'm not familiar with any of them. But this one, Tarot for Writers, that is the one that I'm currently reading myself, and it's actually really good. So yeah, if you're interested in that particular aspect, I would suggest you start here. Like I said, I don't really know the other ones, so please read the reviews if you wanna read those. So while I'm not interested in this kind of work, I've always felt much more drawn to exploring how tarot or any other card system actually could help with questions of the author mindset. And of course, as a writing coach, that's what I'm interested in. Because as a writing coach, I come across so many struggles. And of course, as a writer myself, I have so many struggles of my own. But what kind of struggles are these? That's something that I've always been wondering about. Why do we have these struggles? How do we deal with them? How do we get beyond them? So I started looking at resources for that, and there wasn't a lot out there. And I don't know if you know the Toni Morrison quote. It's one of my favorite ones. If there's a book that you want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. That's exactly what I started doing. I just started creating my own resources, basically. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Like, how can we use tarot or oracle cards or angel cards to deal with these particular questions? So now we're really starting in today's topic. What I've learned from years of coaching different writers and years of journaling about my own writing journey is that we often struggle because, we aren't as in touch with our intuition as we could be. Funnily, our creative well is like literally located in our guts, but it's really hard for us to listen to our guts, for most of us anyway. But here's what I believe. I know some people say that they don't have an intuition. I believe we all have intuition. But when we're in a room with a lot of voices, it's really easy for your own voice to be drowned out, especially if you're just starting out and you aren't that confident yet. Of course, let's face it, some of us will never actually feel confident, no matter the level of our success. Imposter syndrome is real, and it's really very hard to kick to the curb. But, that most of us have learned to disregard that intuition from a very young age onward. That doesn't really help. At the same time, though, I believe that even though we've learned to disregard and disconnect from our guts, that really doesn't mean that none of those messages ever gets through. I'm sure you can think of at least like one example when your gut was screaming at you to make a certain decision. And I think it screams the loudest when we're about to make like a decision that we really don't want to do, like we do it for other people, but our own guts really, really want us to do something else. I think that's when it screams the loudest. But like I said, I'm sure you can think of at least one example that you're like, oh yeah, my body was saying one thing, but my mind was trying to do the other thing. And there was a complete clash there. I think the issue is that these kind of gut messages, this intuitive voice, that is what we are taught to second guess, since they don't come with a real rational explanation. And if we can't rationalize it, like we tend to ignore it, right? So the situation we get is this: unable to hear our own voice anymore because we've learned to disconnect from it, or disregard it if we do still hear it. We start listening to other people's voices. And the thing is, there are so many voices out there. And I'm not like everywhere. And like if we talk about the writing industry, yes, many, many voices out there. And it's really easy to get caught up in what, they are thinking, what they are saying, what they say is best for you. And that's exactly what I've been seeing in the writing world. And that's what a lot of my coaching clients struggle with as well. A lot of people seem to know a lot of things. They say a lot of things. And if you're not in touch with your own inner voice, you don't know how to listen to that inner voice, you might one day find yourself on like a path that was not meant for you, right? Like you might find, you might wake up and think, I'm actually living somebody else's life. This is not the life that I envisioned for myself. This is not how I thought I was going to do things. So this is not how I wanted to do things. This is not the writing career that I had in mind. But other people said that this is how I should be doing it. So I did. And now I realize it's not working. I encounter that all the time in my coaching business. People who are just like, I'm failing for some reason and I don't know why. Well, a lot of us are failing because we look at what other people are saying. And then we judge what we're doing by their standards. And all the time we forget to listen to, okay, so what do we want to do? What do we deep inside want to do? What is the best thing for us to do? So for me, this is exactly where cards come in. This is how you can use cards for yourself. So just for those who really have no idea what this whole card business is about, let me just take a sip of water. I understand reading cards as being less about divination, so like looking into the future, than it is about being able to reconnect to my intuition. I do ask my cards questions about the future, because let's face it, when appropriate, I'll really ask them anything. But I prefer using my cards to understand what is going on right this very second. For example, what could I be doing right now to get where I want to be in my career, or to make the best out of this particular situation? What do I need to know about the situation that I am in right this second before I move on, before I proceed? So in other words, I tend to use my cards to become mindful of the moment that I'm in, and to tune in with my gut, that own inner voice, just by seeing what message shows up for me in that moment. So, yes, that's the right slide. Cards help me basically to differentiate between what I think I know, because I was told to believe so by others, and what I actually know deep inside to be true about myself and the path that I'm on. As such, cards, and the same goes for other methods of divination, are a tool to bypass the ego and everything else that stands between you and your own inner voice. Cards help you to stay with you, like with your own, with you, amidst the sea of voices who think they know better than you, who you might actually think know better than you. So cards, to say it simply, they cut through the bullshit. They bridge that gap. Sometimes they do so by making you think something through from another perspective, and sometimes they do it by slapping a message in your face that you know you cannot ignore anymore. Basically, using cards helps me to differentiate between the different voices that I hear out there, the different messages that I hear out there, and it helps me realize which of those voices is my own. And it helps me to hear what it is saying. And interestingly, as I was just thinking about that, as I came out of the card-slinging closet myself, I realized just how many of my writer friends also love a good card deck. So I'm also not the first person to realize how beneficial an occasional card reading can be for the creative mind. Now, one disclaimer here. I don't want to say that you should all go online right now, this very second, and order a card deck if you don't already have one. Reading cards is not for everyone. It's not a tool for everyone, and it either speaks to you or it doesn't. If you find yourself in any way intrigued, yes, please do follow that curiosity. But if you're listening to this and there's nothing that resonates, don't feel like there's something wrong with you, or you're missing something, or that you're missing out on something. There are so many tools out there, and if this isn't for you, that's okay, right? So don't feel bad. If it does resonate, however, you might be asking yourself how you can incorporate some card slinging into your writing practice. Well, that very much depends on where you are right now. And for the purpose of this talk, I've decided to differentiate between 3 very simple scenarios. I'm sure there's all kinds of in-between positions. But for the sake of clarity, let's focus on these. So first one, I don't own any cards yet. The second one is I have cards, but I don't really know how to use them, or I don't really use them. A lot of people have 1 or 2 card decks at home that they picked up at this cutesy little store years ago, and they just never did anything with them. And the third option is I'm already a frantic card slinger. Maybe you just haven't used it a lot in your creative endeavors. So if you don't own any cards yet, obviously you need to pick a deck. It doesn't matter what deck, as long as it speaks to you. It also doesn't matter, not to me anyway, what kind of deck that is. If tarot really speaks to you, go with tarot. If you find this gorgeous angel deck or an oracle deck, go for it. A little advice, do take your time though. check out the imagery and the booklet if you can. Most decks are featured online, so you can just Google it and then see what comes up. Some decks are even entirely covered on YouTube, so you can see a complete run through of all the cards on YouTube. If you don't want to invest in a deck right away, there are also online templates you can download and print. Some are paid, some are free. I would start trying to Google. You could also look at Pinterest. I like using Pinterest to find like tarot spreads for inspiration. Etsy might also be a good place for some digital downloads. But if you don't want to invest in a card deck right away, that could be a great option for you. Another option is to find a really good website. There's a few that allows you to draw cards for read. I'm very much a fan of Colette Baron Reed's website. Some of my decks are by her. Basically what she has this tool that you can pick using any of these decks. So I have this one and I have this one and I have my eye on this one. You can pick any of these decks and then you can pick 1 to 3 cards. She doesn't have tarot, although she has a beautiful tarot deck in her collection. She doesn't include a tarot deck here, but I think it is a really, especially if you have no idea what cards are doing or you just want to test one of these decks before you buy it, I think it's a really generous tool of her to put online. And of course, if you're using a bigger spread that has more than 3 cards, you can simply pick your first 3 cards, refresh, and then pick whatever else you need, right? So you can really customize it in that way. So if you do have cards where you don't really know how to use them or you haven't used them, or like you just bought your cards and now you want to know how to start, my advice would be to start slow. Elaborate card spreads. So this is, I promised to show what a spread was like. This, for example, is the Celtic Cross. It's one of the most famous card spreads out there. So this is a card spread. It's basically a collection of questions around a particular topic. But like I said, you don't have to start with this one. You can start with a 1 card or 2 card spread. Take it easy, right? Smaller card spreads can work just as well. You don't always have to ask all your questions at the same time. And a simple 1 card draw can go a long way. Like all my tarot challenges are based on that principle. Most challenge days ask for you to draw just 1 card to 1 question. And I actually have a few examples of my own work here. So these are all from challenges. So this is just a simple, 1 card, 1 question, 1 card, very simple. These are bigger spreads. And this is from a book that I actually haven't published yet. I think I'm going to publish it next year. So next step would be to get to know your cards, and becoming familiar with any deck is a process. So take it easy. Don't get frustrated if you don't immediately understand how a card relates to your question. It can take time, sometimes even a few days or longer before the meaning truly lands. When you do a bigger spread, and that can be a 2 or a 3 card spread even, it's always helpful to read any card in relation to others in the same spread, because that might uncover a layer that you haven't seen before, that you hadn't thought about before. When you do something like a daily card practice or you do a tarot challenge, it's also very useful to reflect on cards that keep showing up for you. Sometimes, what a card is trying to bring across only makes sense when you read all of these occurrences together. So reflection really is key here. And I always recommend people to keep coming back to their results, even if the result was really straightforward or looked really straightforward, because you never know what else you might uncover when reading certain cards together. And this is something that I keep finding when I do my own tarot challenges. And this is also why I highly recommend journaling about your draws. If you truly cannot figure out what a card is trying to tell you, you can always draw a card for clarification. That's a very normal practice. And it's really up to you whether you want to shuffle the deck again or just pick the next card. As always, I would say whatever feels right in that moment is what you should be doing. So that's always another option. Learning how to interpret your cards also takes time. So easy does it. Some card slingers really stick to their deck's guidebook religiously. others frown upon anything that isn't a purely intuitive reading. Here too, I would say do whatever feels right for you. There's really no reason you cannot use the guidebook. If your deck comes with one, not all decks come with a guidebook. And I would say especially when you've just purchased a deck and you're really new to it. I mean, the creator has put so much of themselves in those books, so why would you disregard what they try to say outright? Of course, once you're familiar with a deck, you might not need it anymore, and that's absolutely okay. The more you let go of the guidebook, the more you might uncover new layers that are specific to you and how you relate to your deck, because a deck does become personal at a certain point. Of course, sometimes you will get that nudge to have a little look at the book just because you're missing a particular aspect about a particular situation. And if you do get a nudge like that, don't ignore it. Just grab the book, have a peek. There's nothing wrong with that. Likewise, if you never ever feel drawn to look at the guidebook, even when you just bought your deck, that is fine too. This is a very intuitive practice, card reading. So always follow whatever feels right in that particular moment. That said, it's always good to start like this. You start by looking at the image. What do you see? What colors are the most prominent? What's the imagery like? Who's in it? How does it make you feel? How could this relate to the question that you just posed? Just take it all in and write it down. Please note, though, that a card might feel different depending on the kind of question you ask, and you might notice different things about it than you did 3 weeks ago when you drew it in answer to another question. A card might look intimidating and cold in relation to one question. I've had this happen a lot. The next time you draw it, it suddenly gives you an entirely different vibe. Trust that. Different questions reveal different layers and provide different perspectives on what a card speaks to. So just trust it. Also, not all card decks work the same. Some are more text-based and don't have a lot of imagery. In those cases, focus on what the message does to you. Some decks are simply meant to provide inspirational messages, and they don't include the archetypes or the journeys that tarot decks or some oracle decks do. This is why it's so important to check out a deck before you buy it. Just see what it looks like, what it does, what it includes. Now, unless you got that clear duh moment when you are looking at the card, check out the guidebook. Look what's written in there. Does it resonate? Does it deepen your understanding of what you've already written down? How could this particular message relate to the question that you posed, like the writing in the book? Write it all down. And this is also something that I have found just from experience, is that despite the sometimes long descriptions in the guidebooks, every card speaks to many aspects at the same time. So when you read a long description, pick whatever resonates with you in that moment, even if you've read that card differently at another time in relation to another question. So learning how to interpret your cards might be the scariest thing for beginning card slingers. And in my Patreon group, the Creative Card Slingers, I have a few newbies, and we just did my last challenge, Step Into Your Power. And we did it together in the group. And it was so rewarding to me to see how these people became more confident with their readings as the challenge went on. So yes, it is a question of just doing it, writing it down, reflecting on it. This is how you get the hang of it. It's the only way to get a hang of it. And of course, doing it together in a group of supportive fellow card slingers, that helps a lot. So if you know any other people who are into cards, connect to them. It can really make all the difference to your practice. Learning to ask the right kind of questions is also vital. Like, the questions you pose are so important, and you'll see that you get better, clearer results as your questions improve. Yes, no questions are kind of a no. They don't really work that well. Instead, it's better to go for the why, how, when, what, where kind of questions. So instead of asking yourself, instead of asking your cards, is this what I need to do? You could ask, what do I need to know about this situation right now? Or why am I asked to make this choice right now? Or what is the most probable outcome if I decide on A? And if you add the same question for option B or even C, what's the most probable outcome if I choose B, you can easily turn this into a simple 2 or even 3 card spread. Learning how to formulate the right kind of question takes time and practice. And some card slingers never get to the point that they're comfortable creating their own questions. If that sounds like you, if you're like, I don't know if I'm ever going to get there, I'll share some resources in a bit. Now, what if you're already a frantic card slinger, but maybe you just haven't really asked questions about your writing yet? You should know it's as simple as asking kind of different, slightly different questions than you're used to. If you're a daily card drawer, you could draw a daily card thinking, what do I have to keep in mind today about my writing? What do I need to remember today about my writing? When it comes to my writing, what do I need to prioritize today? Or what mindset or what kind of energy do I need to bring into my writing today? If you do create your own spreads or you use ones that you find online, simple, tweak the questions to fit your writing-related struggles. Or you could also look for those aimed at creative struggles. As I just said, there aren't many resources out there yet, but they are slowly growing in number. And I've got a really good one for you right here. This one was literally just published, I think, 2 weeks ago. I have them as well. I still have to print and laminate them. They come as a PDF download. But Kristen from Over the Moon Academy, she published the Mystic Maker Muse question cards for creatives. It's quite of a mouthful. And these are 120 creativity-related questions that you could use to ask, that you could use as questions, like you could use as questions to draw cards to. You can get it for free on her, I want to say Ko-Fi page, but maybe it's Coffee page. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But if you do go and get it and you can donate something, please do leave a donation. She shares so much for free. She does so much work. So really, if you can, leave a donation. But I think these questions are a really great place to start. And as you can also see, if you go to my blog, I have the direct link here in the on the slide. But if you go to mswordsmith.nl/blog, you can also find an interview I did with Kristen recently about this particular deck. Of course, another option is to pick up one of my own books, which are all of these all of these books, except for this one, because this one really is about questions about just the story itself. So these 5 are about the author mindset, and this is about actually uncovering layers and connecting the dots in the story that you're working on. So this is a slightly different take. But of course, you can pick up any of my own books. These 5 all relate to unraveling creative struggles. And they're all on Amazon, by the way. If you rather have a PDF, you can find them all at payhip.com/mswordsmith, or you can go to mswordsmith.nl/books. There you find all the links to Amazon there as well. But if you want the PDF, it will bring you to Payhip, and you can get the PDF there. Now, if you're still scared to dive in, I've just discovered a new tarot podcast 2 weeks ago, and I really do recommend it to anyone who's new to the practice. It's called Healing Through Tarot. The host is Heather Hardison. She's a clinical psychologist, and I just this Monday figured out that she actually uses tarot for her own fiction writing. I didn't know that, but we got to talking on Instagram. She told me. So I was gonna say, like, at this point, and she just has, like, I think she is on the 4th episode now. She hasn't talked about writing or creativity yet, but now I know that she will do this in the future. She is planning to. But what I like is that she really treats it like the episodes, the first few episodes are really for people who are entirely new to tarot. And she also busts quite a few tarot myths in those first few episodes. And I think those might really help ease you into the practice if you're still a little scared. So I just wanted to give you this because I really enjoy listening to it as well. So to conclude, basically, well, this was my conclusion. If you're still scared to dive in, listen to this and you won't be scared anymore. But for those who want to know where to find me and my books, I'm really active on Instagram. My website is mswordsmith.nl. Don't be scared by the .nl because my entire website is in English. So don't be afraid. You'll be fine. This is where you can find my books. You just saw the links. I'm also active on Facebook, and I recently started a Patreon page. For example, if you support me for €5 a month, you can become a member of the Creative Card-Slinger group that I just talked about. You get like free news spreads every week and a really supportive, interactive community to help explore the practice. So this is where you can find me. And I also have a little free thing for you. So this is also actually for those who are like, yeah, I'm still not sure about those card things. I have this Get Out of Your Own Starter Kit. It's free if you sign up to my newsletter. And it actually includes 4 different tools to get out of your own way. So it has an exercise on limiting beliefs that anybody can do. Nothing card related there. I'm pretty sure all of us have limiting beliefs on our creativity and on our writing. There's also a monthly tracking and reflecting worksheet, which can be treated as an addition to the 52 Weeks of Writing author journal and planner. And there's also a meditation on letting go of limiting beliefs. And there is one tarot spread from Tarot for Creatives on creative roadblocks. So this is just a little something, even if you are still on the fence about this whole card slinging business and using it in your writing practice, you can still get something out of my talk.
Before you go, here's a word from my friend Stephen Schneider over at Discovered Wordsmiths podcast.
Hey, this is Stephen Schneider, and I know that doesn't matter because you have no idea who I am. Well, I run a podcast called Discovered Wordsmiths. This is a great podcast where we talk with brand new authors, people you've not heard of, but probably should because they have some really great books and a lot of great information that they've learned as new authors. So if you're interested, run out right now. In fact, go. It's going to disappear. You got to do it quick. Just whatever you're listening to this on, use that, look us up. That'd probably be easier. So anyway, it's Discovered Wordsmiths. Check us out.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful and inspirational. Now, don't forget to come on over to Facebook and join my group, Turning Readers into Writers. It is especially for you if you are a beginner writer who is looking to write their first novel. If you join the group, you will also find a free cheat sheet there called 3 Secret Hacks to Write with Consistency. So go to emmadesi.com/turning readers into writers, hit join. Can't wait to see you in there. All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.